Goddesses, Gods and Guardians Oracle Cards, a 44 card deck and guidebook by Sophie Bashford and artwork by Hilary Wilson. This is a really beautiful deck. It is a Hay House publication and I just love the colours within the cards. I think they're really earthy and really grounded and very beautiful. This one here, Kuan Yin, Kindness and Nurturing. This is my favourite card in the deck. I do have a number of statues of Kuan Yin around my house, and I've had them for 30, 40 years, and I just adore her. Some of the other cards, as you can see, I'm not going to show you them all for the simple fact that there are a lot of different ones to get through. But very beautiful cards. A lot of depth, a lot of feeling. Just really gorgeous. Bridget, You're a Healer, another card that I adore. Baba Yaga, Patience. Hikat, Past Life Healing. Hell, End of a Cycle. And Dryad, Protect Your Energy. I just love this particular card as well. It has a solid guidebook with it, as most Hay House publications do. It's in black and white. It doesn't have pictures of the actual cards, but it has information about the cards, and it has additional meanings and an invocation for each particular card. Next, we have the Self-Love Oracle by Akal Pritman. Find peace and happiness through the chakras. This is a rock pool deck, and it's a very pretty deck. I'll just show you the guidebook first. So this is the guidebook. It's got a lot of information. Each card has a picture. It then has information about it. So this is set up so that the cards either have a soul lesson, they have for each chakra. So for each chakra, there's a card with a soul lesson. There's a card with Breathe In, the Gift of, and there was something else. What was the other one? A Ritual. So these are very beautiful. A lot of information in here. So what I like about these cards is what I also struggle with a bit. So I love that the back of these cards are all different colours. Each colour represents a different chakra, which I absolutely love. I think they're gorgeous. But when I go to use them, it means that I personally close my eyes so that I'm not aware of which chakra that I'm getting when I'm pulling a card or cards. On the other side, it has beautiful pictures and messages. So, done in a collage style, but very beautiful. As you can see. The next deck I have is one that I've had for a really long time. It's by Esmara Emoto. I'm not sure if you'll have heard of him or not. He's the author of The Hidden Messages in Water. And this deck I've had for probably about 20 or more years. It is 48 water crystal cards. So each crystal is very different, and it's interesting to see that some of them have colour changes once the words are spoken into them. So here we have Wisdom and Compassion, and the crystal looks like this. We have Reverence, and it looks like this. And we have Eternity, and it looks like this. Now, I'm not going to go into all of them. Again, this is a deck that is different on the front and the back for every card. So it is one that I tend to, again, close my eyes when I'm dealing with it, because I don't like to be impacted by what I might be visually seeing. So I tend to close my eyes to use this deck. It is a deck that I will often pull a card from. When I used to use it more often than now, I would pull a card from asking a question of what is it that I need in my life right now. and say if we got wisdom and compassion, then I would sit this card underneath water, a glass of water that I would put above it, and I would ask the universe to take on the wisdom and compassion into the water, similar to speaking into the water, I feel. And I would leave that sit there for a couple of hours usually and allow it to absorb the words. I've also put them under my bed, under my mattress, over the years when I've needed to, when I felt a real pull for a particular word and need for a particular kind of emotion. So like affection and gratitude, I might have put that under my pillow or under my mattress to be able to sleep on it and to be able to absorb the full effect. So this is how I've used these cards. It's very different to how I would use most of my cards, but I really love them. And I found a lot of value in them. It has this tiny little book with it. It's not a very big book, but it does give you 1 or 2 lines about each card, and it tells you that the cards are broken up into sections. So here we have cards of healing, we have cards of power, cards of wisdom, cards of the earth, and obviously the information with them. And if I have a look here, because I got these when they first came out many, many years ago, and if I have a look here, 2004. So I've had these basically since 2004. And they're a deck I don't use all the time, like I said, but it is a deck that I certainly would never part with. So the next deck I have in my collection is the Wild Woman Oracle, Awaken Your True Free and Soulful Self by Cheyenne Zarate, I hope it's pronounced. Now this is a deck I haven't had for very long. It is a 2002 deck and it's by Rockpool Publishing. But it's one that when I was actually in Big W in Tasmania, and I was looking around and I seen this deck, and it's not one that I would normally pick up, but I kept turning away from it, moving around, looking at other things, and kept coming back to it. So I decided that obviously there's something in here for me, and I picked it up and I brought it home, and I was really, really excited when I opened it to do that. So this is the guidebook for it. It has the pictures of the cards and information, which is really good and speaks about the symbolism and gives you a message, and that's for every card. But what I absolutely adore about this deck is the actual colouring. It's a really, it has the black edging here, as you can see. To me, it's a really earthy, soulful kind of deck. I'm trying to make sure that the light doesn't reflect on it because they are a little bit on the glossy side, which means that it does that. It is a real soulful deck. I love the fact that it's basically only got the 2 tones in it. It does have a little bit of white, as you can see, around this border, but basically it's the 2 tones, and it's got a real deep depth of feel for me. The more that I work with it and the more that I like it. I haven't used it as much as I would like. It's definitely there for me to sink my teeth in a little bit more and to work with, to get a real true understanding of the deck and how it can assist me. But I definitely love it. I think it's definitely going to be, the more I have it, the more I know that it's going to be something that I use for my shadow work and my deeper work. But very beautiful deck. Another deck that I have is Messages from Your Animal Spirit Guides, Oracle Cards by Stephen D. Farmer, and the illustrations are by B. Sturgis. It's a 44 deck and guidebook. This box has a real tactile feel to it. It's really lovely. It feels really nice in my hands. I'm a very tactile person, so I really like that. These are the back of the cards. They're quite beautiful. Again, it's that earthy colours for me. It just really shouts out to me. It makes me feel connected and really grounded. So these are the animal cards. This one is the gorilla. Here we have the spider. The peacock, let yourself stand out and be noticed. The kiwi, do a walking meditation each day for the next week. This is a good time to go on a new adventure with the emu. This is one of my favourite cards in this deck, the platypus. Stop complaining and focus your attention on the blessings in your life. Rattlesnake. Puo, which is a Hawaiian owl. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Octopus. Practice shape-shifting by altering your physical appearance and mannerisms. And mouse. You're overlooking some important details to pay closer attention to what's going on. Now, this is actually a deck that my daughter had first, and she really gravitated towards it, but she doesn't use it anymore, so she's given it to me for my collection, and it will stay here until she wants it again. So very beautiful. Now, this is the Soul Lessons and Soul Purpose Oracle cards by Sonia Choquette. I actually have a newer updated version of this deck, which is very different in look and feel. So this is the actual guidebook. It's a Hay House publication. It's got the black and white image of the card, followed by information for each particular one. And these are what the cards look like. This is the back of them. And this is the front of them. I actually had the newer version of this deck first before I got this one. And when I got the newer version, just one moment, I'll see if I can find it. So this is the newer version of this deck. It's, as I said, it's a very different look and feel, and it has a different name. This one's called the Divine Energy Oracle, but as we can see from the book in here, it actually says this is 2006. It says that originally published as Soul Lessons and Soul Purpose Oracle cards, which is these ones here. So when I got this one, I was very excited to get it actually. When I first purchased it, it is obviously Hay House, and Sonia Choquette has some beautiful decks, and I had a number of hers for a really long time, so I was really pleased to get it. So this is what the back of this one looks like, and this is the front. Now, I was really disappointed when I got this deck for the simple fact that there's only so many different variations of the actual cards themselves. I think there's 5 or 6 maybe, and there's a Paris one somewhere. Where is it? Oh no, yep, there it is. That's the Paris one, and this one. There must be 7 different styles to these cards, and they just have the information on them. And I was sorely disappointed. But working with this deck, I realized how powerful it is, and just how wonderful it is. And I use it as a side deck, so I tend to not use it on its own at all. I use it with other decks to help strengthen the messages that are coming through and to give an added depth and element to a reading that I'm doing. But the reason I got this, as I said, I had this one first. The reason why I then went out and looked for this particular deck is the one thing that didn't make sense about this one is the fact that, as you can see, the cards don't have any numbers or anything on them. And they're in here with the actual picture of the card and the information, but they're not in alphabetical order, which makes it really hard when you're looking for a card to be able to work out where it is in the book. You've got to keep flicking and whatever to find it, because it's not in any alphabetical order. It's just all over the place, which I found I really struggled with. So what I did realise is that when I got this book here, these cards are set up in a way, the same way as this, and that is that each of the cards refers to a soul lesson, and the soul lessons run in order. So when they created this deck, they did the same thing. They kept the order in the workbook, in the guidebook, they kept the order of the cards, but there's no way when you're looking at the cards to know what order they are or what number it is. So it doesn't make sense at all. So this guidebook was made a true copy of this one. It's almost completely identical. The cards run in the same order. They're numbered in the same way. And it didn't make sense to me. But when I got this one and I realised that basically they're ordered in the number of the soul lessons, it just made that bit more sense. So this is the Divine Energy Oracle by Sonia Choquette, and this is the original version, which was the Soul Lessons and Soul Purpose Oracle cards, as I said, also by Sonia Choquette. And as you can see, this is a very different style, very much an early 2000s style of deck, in the way that it's set out and shown. So, and I love the simplicity of these. I love the simplicity of the pictures and the simplicity of the message, but when you actually read the guidebook, it goes into so much more depth if you wish to have that. And I suppose because one of the first times I started working with oracle cards was the late 90s, early 2000s for the bulk of them, and the fact that these were the kind of cards that were available in the style around that time definitely means that it's something I continue to gravitate towards, and it feels like home to me. It feels really familiar and makes these cards really easy to work with. So there's those two decks, different versions of the same one. Now, another deck that I have is Joyful Expectancy. It's 40 oracle cards and guidebook for a powerful, transformative and healthy pregnancy and birth, and they're by Karina Glanville. Now, I actually got these cards after I'd had all my children. And I've been asked, why did I do that? You know, what are you going to use them for? They're for pregnancy and birth. But I use them when I'm looking at creating something new in my life, as in birthing an idea or something, and the pregnancy. So during the incubation of that particular thing that I might be doing. So this is when I will turn to use these cards. The information can definitely be utilized in that way, and it's a very beautiful deck, which means that this deck gets a lot more use for me than it would if I was purely using it for a pregnancy and birth deck, because obviously having had my children, it would sit on the shelf and not really do very much at all, maybe until they decided they may or may not have children, and then it might come out again. But because I use it when I'm birthing a new idea and I'm incubating that idea till it comes to fruition and actually starts having a life of its own and is actually in the here and now, when I'm working through things, this is a really great deck to be able to use to get insight and guidance with that. And I love doing it. So each of the cards has a mandala on one side that corresponds to the word underneath. This one is prosperity, this one is reassurance, this one is rest, and this one is divine feminine. As you can see, the inner child, very beautiful. And then on the other side, they have, this one is release your fears, and on the other side it says release your fears. It's time to challenge the fear that is limiting you. Confront the fear and the power it holds over you will dissolve. So they're really great. They are glossy, which I don't like glossy cards, but I do like using these ones. Again, like quite a number of my decks, they're completely different on both sides. So the pictures and the words are completely different on both sides, which means that for me personally, when I'm using them and I'm shuffling them, I close my eyes so that I can't see what is on them, and I can't be influenced by colours or pictures or images, symbolism that I see at the time, or if I'm using it this way, the words that might be there. So I close my eyes to be able to use this deck. But it is a beautiful deck, and it is one that I enjoy using when I'm birthing and incubating a new project or something in my life. So this is Self-Care Wisdom Cards by Cheryl Richardson. This is a 52 card deck, and the artwork is by Joe Podmore. It is a Hay House deck. Again, it has words on one side and images on the other. And this is a really beautiful deck. It's very easy to use. I find it really uplifting. I find it a really positive deck. And when I'm working with my self-care and I'm not feeling it, I think it's a really gentle deck that definitely helps you to shift your perspective or think about something in a different way and really look at what might be happening in your life and how you can work with it. So again, being a deck that has pictures on one side and words on the other, I don't look when I shuffle it. I certainly don't look when I shuffle it. I close my eyes and pull a card or two. It is a deck that I love to use with the Divine Energy Oracle by Sonia Choquette in this particular edition. The messages from this, coupled with the pictures and the wording here for this deck, are considerably strong, and they marry up really well. And I have been swept off my feet with the way that these messages just fit like a glove with these ones, and they just help build a really great understanding and add an extra layer of depth to a reading. So these are cards that I love to also pull and put on my altar. The pictures are gorgeous, so having them on my altar to remind me of the message for self-care is really lovely, and I do enjoy using them. Another deck that I have is Because I Love Myself by Lucy Cavendish. These are healing messages of love from your soul to yourself. Now, as many of you may realise by the last video that I did, I've been through a really traumatic experience, and my self-care and self-love just went plummeted. And my mental health was severely affected for quite some time. So the self-care decks and this one here, I Love Myself deck, is only a couple of the decks that I use to really support my mental health and to make sure that I stay in a really great space. It's not easy, as many of you would know if you've been in a similar situation, but it's definitely doable, and these tools really help me personally to be able to remain positive and look for the positive in life. So they have these beautiful pictures. They're all the same on one side. Very, very small cards. They're easy to hold, easy to shuffle. And sometimes I'll just have them in here with the actual image looking at me. And because they're all the same, I might just flick through and then just pull one out to be able to get the message. This one says, "My needs matter. I please myself. I focus and check in, asking, what is it, my own bright, precious self, that you want most at this time? I make my needs my priority." So this is a really great deck for when I'm not feeling it, really, and I need to remind myself that, I do matter, and that I do love myself regardless of how I might be feeling. So a really, really, really great deck. You can use it in any way that you like. That's just the basic information about the cards. But as you can see, the one picture on this side and on the other side, it's just got the different messages. But I think it's a really worthwhile deck, and I have actually bought this deck and given it to a friend of mine, and she has really benefited from it as well. And this is a Blue Angel publication. It says here, experience the inspirational and healing power of self-love with these beautiful, compassionate cards from best-selling author Lucy Cavendish. It's a 55-card deck that offers practical support for creating kindness, respect, joy, and comfort from within. So, a really lovely deck. The next one that I have is the Goddess Oracle deck and book set by Amy Sophia Marashinsky and illustrated by Haryanto, I believe it's pronounced. This is an older deck that I have in my possession. It's, when was it published? 2006 this edition is. So this is a very good guidebook, a lot of information, definitely a lot of information in here for each card. And these are what the cards look like. Now, this deck is one that I don't use a lot. there was a time when I was really into goddesses, and I looked for a lot of decks to be able to use with that. And this is one of the decks that I got at that time. And it is a beautiful deck. It has beautiful imagery in the cards, but it's one that, for some reason, it just doesn't resonate with me as much as I would really, really like. So it doesn't get a lot of use. It is one that I'm considering whether to keep in my deck or not. But it all depends. I'm really not sure what I will do with it. It just doesn't give me the feeling that I'm after in a goddess deck. And I do have quite a few of them, so we'll get to see them throughout the way. So this is a deck, as I said, I've had for quite some time. I bought it purely because I was doing a lot of work with goddesses, and it had its time and its space, and it did get a lot of use, but nowadays it kind of just sits on the shelf because it doesn't resonate with me in the same way as it once did. Now this is the Great Eastern Oracle by Razuli, Empowering Guidance of the Mystics from the Ancient to Modern Times. This is a Blue Angel deck, and this is the guidebook. I love that I wear glasses, so I love the fact that the actual writing in here is quite big and I can read it without it being too big. It just makes it so much more enjoyable for me personally. It's beautifully set out. You get a picture of the card at the end. So it has an expression of each card, it has a reflection of each card, and it has a mantra, which I find really, really beautiful. Now these cards for me are exquisite. Razuli's art is just absolutely incredible, and I just can't describe for you the way that these cards truly make me feel. There's just something about them. I feel like I could just melt into them and look at them all day. They're just really, really beautiful. His style is just exquisite in my eyes, and I just love it. So this is a deck that I spend a lot of time in meditation and contemplation with. The art just leans that way for me, and I really, really love it. And the messages are incredible. They are from the mystics, the Eastern mystics, and they are just truly great. So this is a deck that I work with probably, just trying to think how often I would work with this deck. It's one I probably work with once a month when I'm looking for just that little bit more depth and support in my life. It's just a really, really beautiful deck. Now the next one I have is the Gratitude Oracle by Angela Hartfield, an artwork by Josephine Wall. Now gratitude is something that I do every day in my life. I keep a gratitude journal, which I'll share in the near future with you guys. And I gravitate towards gratitude, which is one of the reasons why I bought this deck. It has the cards in black and white, it has the messages, and it has an affirmation for each one. These are really beautiful. I really like working with them. Purple, very spiritual color. It's something that I really feel pulled into. It's one of my favorite colors, which is fantastic. The cards have a lot of depth and a lot of feel to them. Definitely really beautiful. It's an art style that Josephine Wall's art style is one that I do really like. It's very colourful. It's so much detail. It's incredible. So I love to use these cards if I'm meditating, if I'm contemplating, and obviously if I'm doing a reading. And I love to use them in my gratitude practices. And hopefully in a new video in the near future, I'll be able to show you my gratitude journals and the things that I do with that. So that's the Gratitude Oracle by Angela Hartfield and artwork by Josephine Wall. And it is a Blue Angel deck. Into the Lonely Woods, I have done a full flip through of this if anybody is interested. Blessings and Messages for Times of Solitude and Isolation, and the deck is by Lucy Cavendish and the artwork is by Dan May. Now, I think Dan May's artwork is phenomenal. It's just incredible. But first of all, we'll have a look at the guidebook. This is a guidebook. We get a picture of the card and we get the message, which is quite good for each of the cards. The cards they're so emotive. They are just so emotive, so introspective. They are definitely fantastic for those moments when you're feeling on your own and isolated and seeking solitude. I just think that they're really beautiful cards. I can't explain to you how much I really love this deck. Now, I love using it, but right now in my life, I'm not feeling the need to be on my own or have that solitude. So I don't gravitate towards it at the moment. When I first got it, I used it a hell of a lot because that was the space that I was in energetically, I suppose. But now my life's just not in that space, so I don't gravitate towards this deck as much as I did. But it is definitely one that I would never part with, and that I would definitely turn to many, many times. It's really beautiful. This is Cosmic Dancer Oracle by Sedona Soulfire and Tess Whitehurst. It is a Blue Angel deck, and it comes with this wonderful guidebook, and it's got lots of information in here. It gives you a picture of the card with the information about it, which is really great. The information is really in depth, which I really love. I'm not one that always uses a guidebook, but I do love a good guidebook. And these are the cards. They're very colourful, very beautiful. Their artwork. Most of the card decks I purchase is because of the artwork. If at the time that I'm purchasing a deck, the artwork doesn't appeal to me, it's not usually something that I will pick up and run with. I do have some decks, as I've already explained, that are not my style, and they have entered my collection just because there was something about it that kept calling at me. But generally, it's the artwork that will pull me in first before the cards do, because I'm the type of person that if I don't feel connected to the artwork, I really struggle to use a deck and read with it. So this is a very beautiful deck. Again, it's that purple colour which really drew me in. It's probably the reason why the art style and the colouring, especially of the box, would have been what would have caught me initially to purchase this, but I absolutely love it. So this deck here is the Ancient Egyptian Oracle, the Cards of Ramet. It's a 72 full colour divination card and comes with full instructions with a 128-page book. Now this is one that I have, it's published by Carlton. This is one that I have had for, I reckon since the late 1990s. We'll have a look and see in a minute when it was actually published. Definitely had it in the really, really early stages of the 2000s. I was obsessed with ancient Egypt, absolutely obsessed with ancient Egypt, and it was something that I was obsessed with for a really, really long time. As you can see here, here's the guidebook. It gives you how to read the cards and things. It's quite interesting. And these are the cards. Oh, sorry, let's have a look and see when it was published, because I got it in the very beginning. So this edition was 2004. So my mum also has an edition of this, and she'd had it for a couple of years before I did. So she must have the original version, which is 1998, but this one is a 2004 edition. So this is, even though I loved ancient Egypt, I really didn't love these cards. I have to be honest. The cards are not something that really appealed to me, but because I was absolutely obsessed with Egypt, I worked with these cards quite often, and they were something that I would turn to quite regularly. So I've built up a relationship with them, and I have a great rapport with them, and I do enjoy using them, but they're not something that, for me, they were a time and a place oracle deck. I really loved them at the time. They added a lot of benefit and value, and because we have a long-standing history, they're probably not a deck that I will ever get rid of, but they're not a deck that I gravitate towards anymore. But it's like an old friend. I just can't seem to want to part with them. But it's definitely an interesting deck. I found it tricky to read at first, but once I got used to it, it definitely was one that I could easily work with. Now, this one here, the Lord of the Rings Oracle. Got a little bit of light on this one, sorry guys. The Lord of the Rings Oracle by Terry Donaldson. It says it's an official Tolkien Enterprise gift set product. I was given this by my mum. So she had received it, and it was actually her deck, and she gave it to me. It has this hardcover book, which is quite nice. It has information in here about the cards. It gives you an esoteric meaning, personal indicators, and reverse meaning for each card, as well as the message. It comes with, if I can get it out, it comes with the ring. And if you look at the symbolism on the ring, it doesn't fit with the Lord of the Rings as I know it. Now, I'm not a massive fan of the Lord of the Rings, so my understanding of the cards is probably not as great as somebody who was a fanatic on it. But I know enough of the story to know that this doesn't, for me, align 110% with the story. So it comes with this map here, and as you can see, it's got Mordor, Gondor, the Iron Hills, the Grey Havens, all those kind of places with it. That's so that you can use it as a base to read your cards on if you choose. These are the cards. Now, like I said, to me this is a very gimmicky set of oracle cards. It's not one that I would have purchased myself, but I have it in my collection because it was given to me, and I have worked with it. I'm in two minds about it, really, to be really honest with you. So as you can see with the artwork, it's quite dark, very Middle Earthish. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. It's definitely, I've used it when I wanted a bit of fun. I don't take it serious as an oracle deck, and that's probably not a good thing. I use it more in a light-hearted manner. So that is the Lord of the Rings Oracle. So this is Finding Inner Peace Inspiration Cards, Become the Best Version of Yourself. These were bought on my self-care journey along the way. I love cards that you can use for your self-care, for looking after yourself, for realigning the way that you interact in the world. And these are one of the decks that I use. They're very beautiful cards. They're quite colourful. They have the title with the message on the card. So, really beautiful. I tend to use them, and I tend to use them when I'm doing contemplative, meditative, journaling. I love to use these cards with journaling. That's probably my preferred way to use these cards, or to have them shown on my altar. I just find personally when I draw a card and I read the title and the message, I have these questions that pop up in my head, which is probably why I like using them with journaling. I find them quite valuable with that. It does come with its own little stand for you to put the cards in, which is always a nice touch, I think. It's gold edged, which is lovely, and this is the backs of them. And it doesn't really come with a guidebook. It does have this little one here that's got basic information for each card, but it's a little bit more information than the message that's on the card, but it's pretty simple. So this is the Finding Inner Peace Inspiration cards, and they are a Rockpool published card, and they're by Olivia Burke, I believe it's pronounced. This is the Universal Wisdom Oracle cards by Tony Carmine Salerno. I do have quite a few of Tony Carmine Salerno's decks. This one I've had for a really long time, and I absolutely love it. I love his artwork for the most part. So this is the back of the cards. You can see they're quite glossy. They catch the light. But this is the back of the cards with the butterfly. And this is the front of the cards. He has some beautiful artwork. The one thing I don't like about this deck in particular is the fact that it has landscape cards. I'm not a lover of landscape cards. If you give me a deck and they're all landscape cards, I'd be okay. But to have landscape cards mixed in with the portrait cards, I'm just not a lover of it. But I've had this deck for a really long time. I've worked with it a lot more in the early 2000s. It was probably one of my really go-to decks that I would use on a regular basis. It's just, again, it's another deck because I've had for a long time and I've built a really strong relationship with. Even though I mightn't use it quite as much these days, I just feel like it's an old best friend, and I know I can rely on it, and I know that the messages are really clear, really succinct, and easy to understand, and yeah, just beautiful. And this is a, what are we, 2006 edition. Now, this is a Super Attractor cards by Gabrielle Bernstein with the artwork by Michaela Ezra. It's a 52 card deck. I actually really like the picture on the back of this deck. It just really appeals to me. I do like it. Now, when I got this deck, I was reading Gabrielle Bernstein's books, which is why I got the decks to match. Hay House is renowned for creating decks that go along with books, and I'm one of those people that falls for it, I guess. If I'm reading a book and it has a deck, I usually go and buy the deck, or if I buy a deck and find out it has a book associated with it, I will buy the book. It's just something I do. I like to be able to get a greater understanding of why the cards are made in the way that they are and how they correspond to the book, or vice versa. So as you can see, simple imagery with the messages on them. It's not my favourite deck to look at. I mean, it's certainly not ugly, but it's certainly not my favourite deck to look at. But I really like the messages. I find the messages quite good. So this is kind of a deck that I tend to use personally as a secondary deck. I pull a card to strengthen a reading that I've got from another deck, and I like that. I like the other element that it provides whilst I'm doing that. So as you can see, the cards are all upside down, right way up. It is a deck that I use quite often. And I think I've said it before in other videos, when I'm using these kind of decks, if I pull a card and it's the right way up, I take the message in the positive, even though they're not designed for this way. If I pulled a card and it was upside down, say like this one, it's good to feel good, I'd be looking at that and going, okay, I'm not really feeling it. I'm not in the right space right now, and I wouldn't turn it around and go, okay, it's good to feel good. I would actually read it as, you know, I'm not feeling good, I'm not right there. So that's how I like to use these cards, but they are designed just to be read in the upright position. So another deck that I have is the Seeker Oracle by Raywin Phelan. Now, there was something about this deck, and I know Raywin has another one. I can't think of what it's called, and I don't have it. This is a guidebook. It has quite a lot of information with the picture of the cards, which is lovely. And these are the actual cards themselves. Now, it is an oracle, but the cards are more in a tarot style and shape. So they're really easy to shuffle, easy to hold. They feel nice in your hands. It is, does it say how many cards it has in it? 55 cards in the deck. And there's just something about these cards. So the art style here is one that I don't normally have or gravitate towards. It's a style that kind of has me floundering. I look at it and I'm intrigued by it, and I do enjoy it, but I don't really know how to take it. When I'm doing a reading, I kind of struggle with, how do I take this? How do I interpret it? You know, what's it trying to tell me? What am I missing? What should I be seeing? And that's what I love about this deck, is it's one that I have to really take notice of when I use, and it's one that I have to spend time with, and it's one that I'm still really getting to know. I haven't used it as much as I would like, but I definitely am still in the phase where I need to get to know it, to really understand it, and to be able to interpret the messages that it's giving. But I really like it in such a strange way. It challenges me, which is what I really like. It definitely challenges me, this deck. But I love having it. The next one I have is, as I said, Tony Carmine Solano. I do have a few of his decks. This is Heart and Soul. It's Oracle Cards for Love, Life and Transformation. And it is a Blue Angel publication. Now, I love the fact that these are in the shape of a heart. I just love the fact that they're in the shape of a heart. So on one side of it, you have the beautiful artistry of Tony Carmine Solano. All the pictures are here. Very beautiful. And then, as you can see, this one's just how to use the cards. On the other side, you have the message. And I love the fact that the cards are so colourful. They're just really beautiful in my eyes. Really, really beautiful. The one thing I don't like about the cards is that, even though I adore the shape, they're just so hard to shuffle. I can't use them with ease when I wish to use them, which is a real shame. But you know, there are other ways that you can use them. You can attempt to shuffle them. You can just spread them out. Because they are all different on one side, I close my eyes when I pick these cards. Or sometimes I will pull a number of cards and then put them so I can see the pictures, and then gravitate towards the picture that really pulls me in more than the other. These cards are ones that, if I'm going to be honest with you, I bought them to be able to use in my women's circles. So the idea was that they would be used in a women's circle, and they would be put out, and each woman could pick a card from the visual image that resonated with them, and then they would be able to get the message on the back and intuit whatever that meant for them. And I think that I have tried using them for myself, but that's the main way that these are going to be used. They're just too big to be able to easily use them every day. I mean, my hands aren't very big. I mean, I can shuffle them, but it's just really awkward. It's just, yeah, too awkward for me personally. But definitely a beautiful deck, and definitely I think is a fantastic thing to use in my women's circle. The messages are lovely. So the next one I have is the Enchanted Heart by Alana Fairchild. This is also a Blue Angel deck, and the artwork is by Lindy Longhurst. And it comes with this lovely little book, which has basic information about the deck. And again, I just adore the fact that these are heart-shaped cards. But they're the same size as the other ones. They're really hard to shuffle. Again, I bought them to use in my women's circles, and the idea is that the pictures would be put forward, and people would be able to choose a picture that resonated with them, and then they would get the message that is on the back. These are really beautiful. They're just really, really beautiful. But they're not a card that I would use for a general reading for me. They're definitely a deck that I would be using and do use in my women's circles predominantly. But it's just gorgeous. I love the fact that they're not your standard shape of card.